Hey people, hope you guys doing great. In today's video we will see, what if Naruto was the Incubus and built his large harem with monster girls? Part 1. Huge shout out to kyosuke-date-the soultaker for this story. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe and like the video. So let's start the story. Paperwork. It just had to be paperwork. Groan. Why do I have to do this again? Because if you don't, you'll create an anomaly in the system, putting you under both human and extra species law, meaning you would fall under the rules and restrictions of both. You wouldn't be able to harm either race. You wouldn't be able to leave your house now that we're aware of you, due to not having a host family to go out with you, and a whole list of other issues. Grumbling and continuing to sign paperwork using both hands and his tail to expedite the process, Uzumaki Naruto sat across from a woman wearing a black dress suit with a skirt and stockings instead of pants, with high heels instead of regular shoes. Her sunglasses were the only thing protecting her from his gaze, otherwise he would have ruthlessly seduced her into doing this paperwork for him. He hated paperwork. After a couple hours, he finally finished the paperwork and slid the huge pile of it over to the woman, Ms. Smith. She had become his pseudo-coordinator after the sect of the government taking part in the cultural exchange between species. Bill had figured out whom, or more specifically, what he was. Well then, Mr. Incubus, everything looks in order. You don't have to hide what you are anymore, and you are now registered. Several laws set down by the extra species bill won't affect you. However, due to this we may use you to test things we wish to change within the bill. You are free to interact with both humans and extra species, and that includes anything that may include harming either. Take note, however, illegal is still illegal. If you kill someone, you will still be persecuted, whether it was human or extra species. Just because you are allowed, please do not take anything to excess. Giving a small nod, Naruto sighed and leaned back in the large comfortable chair in his living room. Ms. Smith was seated on the couch. So when will I receive the ID telling people that I have special rights, as it were? I know no one will just take my word for it when they see me walk out of my house with all my features. I've been living here for months, and in that time I've gotten somewhat used to hiding them when I go outside. No one besides you and the agency even know what I am. Smith gave a small smirk, adjusting her sunglasses on her nose, the blonde across from her mimicking the action with his own glasses. That will be taken care of promptly, within the next few days. However, until then I must personally ask that you don't pick any fights with a human till your special status can be made clear. Right now everyone will see you as purely extra species, and while we have managed to confirm that you are at least half human, being that no other species can so completely hide what they are, no one else will be able to tell the difference. Naruto nodded and rubbed his temples, before giving a small grin. Does that mean I can start taking extra species ladies to my bed? I have found myself unable to since I got here, though for a while that was because they were still hidden from the world. They aren't hidden now, and the laws have so far prevented me from doing so. Will that change now with my special status? Rolling her eyes at the air quotes the blonde used, Smith gave a small, if unsure, nod of her head. That should be possible, yes. That is one of the particulars of the bill that doesn't affect you now that we're aware of you. We ask that you please don't go flaunting anything, but as long as you are in your home, or otherwise hidden, you are free to do as you please in that regard. There is one stipulation, however. We don't want to believe you would do anything bad, but all partners must be completely willing. If they say no, take it to mean no unless they tell you otherwise. He managed to keep the full spectrum of disgust he felt at the insinuation off his face, but he still gave the woman a disgruntled look. I am a human who became an incubus, yes. Just because I sustain myself somewhat through sex does not make me a rapist. The penalty for that where I come from, should the culprit be found, is usually death. I am upset that I can't mete out my people's penalty for rape here in this place, but I assure you I will never partake in that act myself. He carefully left out that he was a ninja, and a damned good one, and therefore no one would ever know it was him if he did find someone guilty of rape and decide to punish them. Ninja were spotty on that subject at best, and prisoners weren't protected from it, but he liked to think that he wasn't the only one from his world who detested the act enough to kill over it. I'm glad to hear that, Mr. Uzumaki. Now, you will be participating in the interspecies homestay program to help people understand how we see you. You will meet your new guest tomorrow. While not absolutely needed, I do ask that you at least wait a while before seducing her. Your guest will be female, and of age, but do try to let her settle in before coming on to her. Naruto gave a small grin, tail swishing about behind him. And what if she comes on to me? Smith gave him a small glare over her shades. That is a very different matter, but you just make sure that's how it starts, or I'll be very disappointed. Anyway, that's all for now, at least in regards to that. I have one more thing to tell you, being that for the foreseeable future, you will be working with my Special Ops Unit, MON. Raising an eyebrow, Naruto gave a little shrug, though he didn't miss the grin that played over the woman's face afterwards. My unit is all female, and we are tasked with dealing with incidents and other tasks pertaining to extra-species people. You will be integral because you will be allowed to deal with any human elements that pop up in our work. Eyebrow twitching, he decided not to remind Smith that such a thing was supposed to be her job. He would get even. Oh, he definitely would, just as soon as she took off those thrice-damned sunglasses. Well, as long as they're willing and it doesn't cut into the work, would you mind if I fraternize with my new co-workers? Sighing, Smith looked him over for a bit, before shrugging. Well, they're all adults, despite how a couple may look. As long as they're willing, I guess I can find no issues with it, as long as it also doesn't interfere with work. Grinning wide, Naruto let his eyes glow as he looked at the woman on his couch almost predatorily. Oh, that won't be a problem at all, Miss Smith, not at all. Grumbling as he watched workers renovate his house, Naruto crossed his arms and lashed his tail about before turning and nonchalantly leaving his house to get his mail. They had come suspiciously close to the time he usually got up to train. He hadn't even been able to enter his resort before they'd rung his doorbell. From 4 in the morning to the current time of 9:30, the team of workers had remodeled his house in what had to be record time. He wasn't pleased with their presence initially, but after seeing how fast they worked, and the quality of it, he made a note to send the company a recommendation for future projects. If only he could get them to add some stuff to his resort without revealing the presence of honest Akami magic to them. Standing next to his mailbox and sifting through his mail as the workers all left, he ignored the looks some people were giving him as he used his tail as a letter opener, his top right wing moving to block the morning sun from his eyes, giving him a bit of shade to read his mail with. Most of it was bills, but one was a congratulatory letter from the government on his new status, also letting him know that he would be the tester for any amendments they wished to make with the extra species bills. Another was his new I.D, and yet another was a voucher to pick up his MON uniform, badge and equipment, which he apparently had to do within the next few days. Apparently it would be his job to bring his guest up to speed enough that she at least wouldn't interfere with his work. Those bastards knew he had some kind of formal training somehow. Shrugging, he pocketed his mail in his jacket for later, and simply leaned on the wall dividing his house from his neighbor's own. Speaking of, the young man who lived next door to him was also getting his mail. Though he was obviously trying not to, the boy was also staring at his new features. This was Kurusuke Mihito, his neighbor for the last several months since he came to this crazy world. He was a nice guy, though a little digging revealed a positively hilarious childhood, particularly around middle school. So, you're some kind of extra species? Giving his neighbor a grunt, he crossed his arms and thought of how he would break the news to the guy. Well, kind of. I'm not from around here, you know, but I was originally human before unlocking something in my blood that made me what I am. Technically, I'm not one of the known extra species races, and since blood work has proven that I am at least halfway human, I have special privileges in regards to the new bill that was passed recently. Kurusu nodded and crossed his arms in thought, a relatively easygoing look on his face. Okay. But what are you? You don't look like anything I've heard of before. Grinning, Naruto patted the young man on the back. Well, my man, I am what all the otaku nerds here in Japan would call their dream species, especially the perverted ones spanning this neat country. I am an incubus, and what that means is that all your ladies are belong to me. A sweat drop fell from the back of Kurusu's head, and he gave an awkward chuckle as he rubbed the back of his head. Well, I think I get it, and I guess this explains why the ladies at the markets give you such good discounts. I hope that's not illegal. PSH, as if, the way I see it, It's practically a need for me, so they can't really stop me from doing something I need, right? Besides, I've gotten them to give you nice discounts as well, so don't complain, man. Just enjoy the benefits of having me as a friend. Kurusu rubbed the back of his head, looking just a bit concerned. Well, okay, but please don't do anything illegal, okay? I kind of like having you next door, gives me someone to talk to since my parents are away. Naruto laughed a bit, slapping Kurusu on the back jovially, his tail swishing about gleefully behind him. Don't worry about it, man. I'll be here when you need me, just as long as I'm not at work. I got a new job apparently, so I may be gone at times. Just as well, maybe you should volunteer for a homestay, get yourself an extra species guest, you know? Your parents are gone, probably for quite a while, and those renovation guys do damn good work in an insanely small amount of time. I swear the whole crew was played by Superman or something. I don't know. I'm not sure my parents would approve, but you're right that they aren't here, and probably won't be for quite a long time. I'll think about it, just help me with the rules and stuff if I do decide to host someone, okay? A thumbs up with a wide grin was the young man's response. Not a problem, Kurusu, my man! For lack of a better saying, your youth will explode into springtime when you have someone to share it with. A bigger sweat drop fell down the back of Kurusu's head this time, and he chuckled awkwardly and began backing up a little when Naruto gave him a grin that made his teeth sparkle brightly enough to blind a bike rider riding down the street, making him crash into a pole with a cry of, "My eyes!" Naruto's laughing was the only thing heard as both he and his neighbor walked back into their homes, though in the latter's case it was more of a tactical retreat. Because youth. His breath caught as he saw his new guest. She had been brought to his house a few hours after the construction crew had left, and when he'd seen the large trailer arrive, he figured he'd be getting someone with a large body as a guest. He never figured he'd be playing host to a Lamia. There was a pang in his chest at the thought of the last Lamia he'd known, and the pain he felt at never again being able to see her now that he'd been cast into this world. This Lamia girl was far different than the one he'd known and come to love, and part of him knew living with her would likely never get dull, but another part of him wanted to turn her away right then. Taking a deep breath, he sighed softly and gave a sad smile that was quickly hidden as fast as it had appeared on his face. Steeling himself, he rose up to his full height of 5 feet 9 inches. At 22 he still retained his sporty figure, lean body, feminine butt. He could correctly blame his mother for that after meeting her in his head once. Some would say it was wrong, but he'd checked when he met her, and he definitely got his mother's ass. Smith, glad to see you. I take it this is the girl I'll be hosting? I assure you she's in good hands. The human woman's sunglasses glinted. She'd better be, or it'll be on your head, mister. Her name is Maya, and she's 19 years old. The now named Maya was looking at her new host with a bit of concern. She had thought she would be home staying with a human, but this looked to be another, if unknown extra species person. Biting her bottom lip a little as she wondered if she should say anything, the need was taken from her when Smith spoke up. Now Maya, don't worry about your homestay. Uzumaki-san here will take very good care of you. Also, despite his looks, it has been determined that he is at least mostly human, and so he has some special exceptions made for him in the bill. He is capable of hiding his features completely without the use of disguises, a feature we know to be unique to him. Due to part of the stipulations for this, however, is that he will be working for me, and since you have to go with him for now if you wish to leave the house, you will be provided training so you can accompany him on the job. Maya looked a bit unsure, but gave a small nod all the same. Giving a small nod, Smith turned to Naruto and nodded again, getting one in return. Why don't you show your guest inside, Uzumaki-san? It's rude to let her stay out here where people can stare as they please. Eyebrow twitching at the woman's words, he grunted softly. What's with all this Uzumaki-san business? Just call me Naruto, damn it. Sigh, Maya-san, please come in and have some tea. The house has already been renovated so you can move around more comfortably. Ms. Smith will show you to the living room. I'll turn the heat up a bit and get a few blankets for your tail. I'm sure that truck wasn't well heated, and you'd probably like to warm up a bit, right? Flashing his new Lamia guest a small smile, he turned and entered his house, leaving the door open for the two females to enter at their leisure. Once inside, he moved to the thermostat and raised the heat a little so it would be a bit warmer. Afterwards, he moved towards a storage closet and retrieved 3 large blankets which he could drape over his new guest's tail to help warm her up. It would take a minute or 2 for the house to heat up. Until then, it would be a bit chilly because that's usually how he liked it. He only preferred some heat in certain circumstances, after all. When he got to the living room, Maya was seated on the first couch, with her tail between the table and his second couch. Smith was in the big comfy chair, his chair. Glowering at the woman for a second, he moved around and began to drape the blankets over Maya's tail, using the 3 he'd gotten to cover almost the whole thing. There you go, nice and toasty. Well, Maya-san, I'm Uzumaki Naruto, but please just call me Naruto. You don't have to add anything to it, as I'd prefer not to be called by San, but we also don't know each other very well yet, so Kun probably isn't good either for now. While nervous, the Lamia girl was glad her host seemed so nice, even if he did look like an extra species like her. Not a Lamia, since they were all female, but just another extra species person. Thank you, Naruto, for accepting me into your home for the foreseeable future, and giving me the chance to learn about your culture. Naruto tried very hard not to tell her that this wasn't his culture, and for her to learn his culture she would need to learn how to kill someone in several dozen different ways, seduce them into giving their secrets, and many other things that weren't entirely scrupulous in this world. A loud yawn signaled his waking, though when he went to move his arms he found a bit of resistance. A fair amount of it, actually. Blinking as he woke up quickly at the bound feeling he had, he was quite surprised to find Maya in his bed with him. That wasn't strange by itself. His bed was big enough for at least 3 people, but he was indeed surprised to find her in bed with him. Over the last week he had been trying to assess where the Lamia girl was at in terms of combat, among other things. Technically it was his duty to train her so she wasn't a burden when he took her to work with him, but she seemed to know some fighting at the least. Her stealth left much to be desired though, and while she was a decent tracker, it too wasn't what he would call stellar. Sighing and resting his head back on his pillow, he smoothly wrested his hands from the girl's coils, creating a single kage bunshin and switching places with it. Glowering at it as the construct started grinning like a loon, he promptly rolled his eyes and dispelled it once he was a small distance away. This woke Maya up and made her sluggishly prop herself up on her hands, blinking confusedly at where her heat source had gone. Maya, what are you doing in my bed? I know I didn't invite you into it, and if you needed more warmth I have thicker blankets. Looking at the blonde, it took the snake girl a little while to figure out that the one talking was supposed to be her heat source, and she whined a little as she realized he had somehow escaped her grasp. Mao, darling, yawn, it's cold, please come back to bed. Rolling his eyes, Naruto shook his head and gave a minuscule smile at the sleepy Lamia. Sorry, Maya, it's time to get up. If you want more heat, I'll be drawing the bath for you. Also, I need you to stay in for a while today. I'm going to be out getting my new uniform. I put it off for a week to perform your evaluation, and I got a text from Smith last night reminding me to pick it up soon. Pouting and simply flopping back into his bed, Maya lethargically lied about for a few more moments, before slowly getting up and slipping out of the bed. Fine. Shaking his head again, Naruto left his room, leaving the door open as he made his way to the bathing room, filling the large tub with hot water. Over the last week, besides evaluating Maya's current skill set, he'd also started sleeping with some clothes on. Maya had started sneaking into his bed after a mere 2 days, though she claimed it was because he was quite warm. It was true, so he figured she wasn't lying. Also, Lamia were supposed to be sexually aggressive, so if she were coming onto him he figured he'd know. The first time she had snuck into his bed she must have done it in her sleep too, adding further credence to her excuse, because she'd passed out upon seeing him naked when she'd woken up. She was definitely getting around to coming onto him though. Rubbing the back of his head with one hand, he stuck his other hand into the tub to test the water's temperature, humming softly. Well, it's definitely nice and hot. Hopefully she won't fall asleep again. I swear, that girl can fall asleep anywhere if it's cold enough in the morning. Chuckling softly, Naruto stretched a bit and bent backwards a little as well, his tail pushing against the small of his back to help him crack it. Hey Maya, the water should be perfect. Why don't you go ahead and get in? Smirking as he spotted the pouting Lamia, who seemed as if she had been trying to sneak up on him, he turned to face her and put his hands at his hips, thumbs hooked under the waistband of his sporty shorts, a classic favorite from his youth. Of course, while he was at it, he shamelessly took in the view of the naked girl as she came from the changing room. He was an incubus. If a lady didn't hide her naked body from him, he damn sure wasn't going to look away. Japanese baths are awesome. By the way, darling, I read some books before I came to this country. Is it true Japan has places called hot springs? Can we visit one someday? Wow, I want to visit one with you, darling. That gave Naruto a bit of pause, making him clutch his chin and rub it in thought. Now if only he had a kung fu master's beard. Well, I suppose we could make plans to go to a hot spring. It's definitely in my budget, and hot springs can be pretty nice if the atmosphere is good. I'll start looking around. We'll take a small trip when I find a good one, though we may have to bring Ms. Smith and my coworkers. I haven't met them yet, but I figure why not. Maya pouted at the thought that she'd have to share her time with her darling with someone else, especially another woman, but maybe the coworkers wouldn't be too bad. As long as they weren't women, of course, 'cause then she'd have competition for her darling's love. And naughtier things too. Raising an eyebrow as he saw Maya's nose begin bleeding as she looked at him, Naruto began laughing when her face bloomed with a blush and drool began running down her chin to go with the blood running from her nose. Darling! Mean! Why are you laughing at me? Smirking and moving to kneel before the lamia, he gathered some water in his hands and gently washed away the blood from her nose. You were having pervy thoughts, Maya-chan. Were you by chance thinking of little old me? The lamia girl blushed again but didn't avert her gaze, staring at him defiantly, her tail slipping from the bath. Before she could snare him with it though, his wings flared out, surprising the girl as he zipped upwards enough to dodge her tail. Mao! Darling, bathe with me! I heard that hot springs have a thing called mixed bathing. I want to try it with you, darling. Shaking his head, Naruto reached out and rubbed the lamia's head, getting a pout from the girl as she glowered up at him. Maybe another time, for now just finish warming up and meet me in the kitchen. I'll have breakfast done by the time you come out. The new song from A&M 48, Everyday Animal Ears, has topped the dash. Nope. I've got enough damn temptation with Maya around, and not enough ladies to take care of it safely already. What is wrong with this place, putting sexy girls up on a stage like that, even just to sing? It's murder on my groin, damn it! The grumbling coming from the blonde in the kitchen was due to the program that had been on the television he had. A bunch of damn near scantily clad extra species girls singing and moving about on a stage did absolutely nothing to calm his quietly seething libido, which had seemed to ramp up after he'd been assured he wouldn't be in trouble. Or get anyone else in trouble, for taking extra species bed partners. He still remembered quite fondly all the ones he'd had back in his own world. What's the matter, Uzumaki Naruto? Don't you like extra species girls? We went through so much trouble making sure you wouldn't break any laws by taking them to your bed, too. Rolling his eyes as one of his wings bent back a bit and waved Ms. Smith off, Naruto continued boiling the eggs and making other egg-based foods. His house guests really loved eggs, though it wasn't anything new to him. Plus he had a bunch of chickens in his resort, or at least an extension of it that was like a giant farm, so he had all the eggs he could ever want. It's not that, you just told me to wait before doing that with Maya, so it's been tough denying her advances lately. Now, if only I had someone with gorgeous legs like yours to help me with my urges. Apparently the hint was gotten, because Smith went completely silent in her chair behind him for several moments. It was enough to bring an evil smirk to his face. Mess with him, would she? Turning to the woman sitting at his table, Naruto allowed a small grin to grace his face as he walked towards her. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't have noticed the very faint flush to her cheeks, nor the way her eyes seemed to look him over subtly behind her sunglasses. He only knew because he could faintly see past her dark shades, if barely. Did you get the hint? Or do you need one a bit more direct? Smith shivered as the blonde leaned over her, whispering hotly in her ear, making her blush a bit more noticeable. However, before anything else could be done or said, a red tail lashed out between them. Smith was fine, Naruto had pushed her back a bit so she didn't get hit. He had even managed to avoid getting hit, but he didn't even try to escape as Maya, still wet and wearing only a t-shirt that clung to her moist form, grabbed him up with her tail. "Just what do you think you're doing? Don't go seducing other women when you've got me, darling." The moment Smith let out a small sigh of relief for the impromptu save by the Lamia girl, said girl's glare turned to the human woman, making her sweat drop a bit. "And you! Don't go doing anything with my darling! He's mine, got it? Only I can do naughty things with my darling!" Naruto hadn't the heart to tell the girl the truth. She'd die if she tried to keep him to herself like that. He'd just wear her out, a point he'd proven at one time to his first Lamia companion. He quickly shook his head at that thought, as thinking about his original world brought a pain to his heart that made his chest ache. Smith laughed a bit, waving the girl off. Don't worry, I've no intentions of giving in to that one's salacious advances. But I'll have to warn you that you've already got some competition. This horned dog has his sights set on several others that I know of. Who knows how many he's already gotten to or plans to get." The woman just laughed quietly as she left Naruto's house after giving the Lamia that bit of information. Said Lamia was now glaring at her host as she held him tight, who himself was glaring at Smith as she left. Okay, he was staring at her ass as she left, but the glare was still there. He was so going to get her back for this. Naruto subtly smirked smugly at Smith as she sat at his table the next morning, looking a bit bedraggled as she sipped at a mug of coffee he'd made for her. "So, anything interesting happened this morning, Miss Smith?" The woman glared at him from the table, silently cursing the young man standing in the kitchen, his tail swishing back and forth behind him in an entirely too amused way. "Oh, nothing really, just some issues at home that are being looked into. No need for you to worry, it was something quite minor, though I'm sure we'll find the culprit soon enough." Naruto simply shrugged and turned back to cleaning up breakfast. Smith had arrived just after him and Maya had finished, though he'd kept a plate out for her along with the coffee she was drinking currently. It truly amused him that the woman thought she could mess with him and get away with it. Far stronger and faster had tried and failed. Stealthier too. It was funnier that she thought she could find evidence to prove it was him. Shrugging and whistling a small tune, he finished up the dishes and left the room, leaving Smith to glower at him. She should have simply been happy hadn't called her on her choice of action after finding all her panties missing. Both risque and risky considering whose table she was eating breakfast at. Several minutes later he returned with Maya, the girl dressed in clothes one would expect for someone going on an outing. Technically she was, as Naruto planned to take her out and get her used to the city and Japan's culture. It was technically a cultural exchange after all. "Ms. Smith, make sure you lock up when you leave, and don't go snooping. Trust me, there are measures in place to punish that kind of behavior." The woman simply rolled her eyes, looking as if she were physically trying to not cross her legs as she usually would. Naruto simply smirked at this and waved to her as he led Maya out front. Of course she would probably snoop, but that would just give him something to do when he got home. After he distracted Maya, of course, couldn't punish snoopers who went and got themselves caught in a trap if he had a jealous snake girl trying to stop him, could he? Maya ended up treating the outing as if it were a date, and honestly Naruto didn't have the heart to tell her otherwise. He guessed it was a weakness to Lamia built up by his last partner. It didn't help that the last Lamia he knew had been one of his regular lovers. He definitely had a weakness to those. The first stop was a restaurant. Thankfully it wasn't a really expensive one, but he definitely didn't mind paying for Maya. In fact, he found her excitement over the meal, and what the rest of the date would be like, adorable. "Ha, Maya, what's with that expression? It's just food." More amused than anything, Naruto could only laugh a bit at the epic pout the Lamia sent him, though he had to restrain himself from reaching over and rubbing her head. He figured treating her childish wouldn't be nice, or safe. Sonia had bitten him 3 times before he got the message with her. Shaking his head of the thoughts, Naruto leaned back in his seat and took a subtle look around, not for any kind of search, more of a habit from his surprisingly short but eventful ninja career. Couldn't exactly be a ninja in a world with no need of them, though he did sell his services to those willing to pay. Musing up his own hair with all the thoughts he didn't want or need to be having at the moment, Naruto focused his eyes back at Maya, only to sweat drop as 3.5 empty plates met his gaze. The girl had managed to eat so much in just the short time he'd been thinking. Spending time with the Lamia girl after their meal helped him get his mind off things. He took multiple photo booth pictures with the girl, and won her several prizes from some arcades. Of course, multiple times during their visits to the game places, Maya had to drag Naruto away from this strange dogfight simulation game star. Apparently Naruto was an adrenaline junkie, and those fighter plane simulator games were real enough for him to totally immerse himself. He somehow found one in every arcade they found, though he made a point to win her a prize or 3 before playing it, and there were plenty of fun games to play that distracted her while Naruto played his little plane game. She didn't know much about the games humans played, but when she had seen his score, in every machine he played in, the initials UNN had went from top to bottom with pretty high numbers. Who was UNN? Was Naruto trying to best his score or something? These were questions that plagued the Lamia every time she had to drag him away from the machine. Seriously, that UNN guy got around. His initials had been in every one of the games the blonde young man had played. The Lamia's own thoughts were interrupted as her darling spotted a sign stating that a store up ahead marketed towards all species and sizes, and promptly told her about it. Naruto knew what it was, too, but before he could mention it the girl had dragged him into the shop already. Chuckling softly, the blonde waved at the young woman tending the counter. She waved back and gave him a questioning look before gesturing to Maya with her head. Aforementioned Lamia was looking around surprised at the contents of the store. Lingerie of many different styles and colors. Plenty of it was pretty risque too, managing to bring a slight flush to the girl's cheeks. Seeing as Naruto wasn't complaining at all about being in the shop, part of Maya wanted to glower at him jealously till he told her why that was. The majority of her, however, won, and decided to move up to the counter and ask if they had anything for her species. Naruto walked up after her and leaned on the counter when the girl left to look through the selection. Okay, Naruto-kun, what's with the extra species, girl? No, wait, before that tell me what's up with those accessories, and why you haven't gave us some sets of props like that. I thought we were business partners. Laughing a bit, the blonde shook his head and moved his wings and tail, though he was now a bit inspired to create replicas of his extra features. They'd make a killing on that kind of thing, especially considering he was surprisingly better than any cosplay costume maker one find. The woman messing with him had no idea how that was, but she was entirely glad she'd found such talent before anyone else did. These are real, sorry, but don't worry, I could have some of those whipped up with some thorough instructions on how to make them properly delivered next week. Darling, what do you think, black or white? Blinking and looking back at his Lamia guest, he tilted his head at the surprisingly tame bras she'd picked out, apparently for him to judge. Surprisingly tame for you, Maya. But you'd look best in something blue, maybe a leafy green. Though the black could work, also you need a size bigger than that, those are too small for you. Instantly, while the desk clerk clapped amusedly, Maya blushed and seemed to reflexively cover her chest. Or maybe she was trying to push it out a bit, it looked a little like both if he were honest. How do you know that, darling? Quirking an eyebrow, the blonde gave a small shrug. It's a talent. I guess hanging around my godfather helped perfect the ability. He had a similar skill, though I am far superior to him in its use. He totally wasn't being boastful. Jiraiya was simply human. There was no way he could do anything related to the magical world of women better than he could. Well then, I don't really wear a bra, so I wouldn't know. I'll take your word for it, darling. Let me go pick out something else. As Maya went to do as she'd said, Naruto sighed and turned back to the store clerk. I'll explain in a second, but I'd just like to warn you. I might end up doing something sexy in one of those changing stalls. The young woman just rolled her eyes, though they widened slightly as the blonde slid a funky-looking ID onto the table. It had his picture on it, with the new additions, and it looked like an extra species type ID, though it had some small red-lettered words at the bottom, claiming special exemptions from certain rules, along with abbreviated numbers to tell which ones. I'm exempt from certain rules of the interspecies exchange bill, due to being able to provide proof that I am more human than extra species. Though I do gain some benefits as counting, if in a minor way, as an extra species person. For instance, I can safely take a lover of any species, without fearing for the law. The woman nodded for a moment before handing him the ID back, her eyes flicking to the lamia still picking out some bras. And the horns, wings, and tail? What kind of extra species are you? What, you don't read my book? Instantly the desk clerk's face flushed, and Maya, who was close enough to hear, perked her ears. Her darling wrote a book? Oh, of course I read it, but what's that have to? Oh my Kami, you're an incubus, aren't you? Laughing boisterously like his dear old godfather Jiraiya, Naruto winked at the young woman after calming down, ignoring Maya's jealous hiss as she glared at both him and the desk clerk. Mao! Darling, come with me real quick! Waving with a mixed look of save me and I'll prove it attached to his face, Naruto lost sight of the flushed desk clerk as a curtain swished around his head to block his view. Maya had pulled him into a changing stall, as he'd predicted. He had a good idea of what was coming next. Lemon skipped. Striding past the couple that had entered the shop while he'd been in the stall, Naruto grinned at the desk clerk as he brought the bras Maya had picked out up and placed them down. Sorry about that, Marla-chan. Anyway, I'll be getting these too, plus a few more which I will pick out in a second. Anyway, you're quite the smart one for figuring out what I am just from the mention of my book. Perhaps I'll reward you later. Winking at the still furiously blushing desk clerk, Naruto whistled innocently and went about picking out a few more bras that would fit Maya and look good on her. It would be several minutes before Maya, blushing just as hard as the desk clerk, exited the changing stall to find Naruto waiting for her, having already purchased some bras. They left quickly after, with Naruto carrying the bags with his tail, displaying its strength despite its thin girth. Maya! Close your eyes, would you? Naruto stood tall and proud, a small bruise on his arm from where he'd blocked a strike of Maya's tail. An incredibly ugly, both physically and mentally, couple had seen Maya as she and he were talking. Sadly, both had instantly started insulting the girl simply because she was a lamia, and he'd had to stop her from lashing out at them. To compound matters, people had started taking pictures of the lamia, and to a lesser extent him, after he had reminded her that she couldn't go harming humans. I am not under the same restrictions as you, Maya-chan, so just let me take care of this. Winking to her, he took a step towards the crowd, reaching up towards his face, his glasses more specifically. Taking them off, his eyes began to glow as he set them upon the crowd, or the ladies within to be more specific. Hello everyone, would you kindly give each other something else to look at? I'd be mighty appreciative if you did. My lady friend here is quite uncomfortable with all the staring and photography. The moment he looked into the crowd without his glasses, the men had stilled, some unknown feeling bubbling within them, like jealousy and fear or some strange mix. The girls, however, every single one considered of age, grew flush and wide-eyed as they looked the handsome extra-species man in the eyes. With a mix of genjutsu for the males, and his natural-born charm for the ladies, both were quick to obey his suggestion. Quite a handy skill, if he said so himself, which he often did. As if by some unknown force, every person in the crowd did a number of things. The men all began posing, some pulling down their pants and mooning others, or taking off their shirts for the more vain males, showing off toned chests and the like. For the women, well, some began to jump up and down lightly, sending certain parts to bouncing with them. Others merely pulled up their shirts or pulled the backs of their skirts up, or pants down, showing phoobs and putts all around. No matter the reason, everyone's eyes were sufficiently averted, and that's all that Naruto needed. Without even bothering to spend more time than needed looking among the ladies bearing themselves, he was quite certain Maya would let him look at her whenever he wanted. He turned towards the couple that started the whole mess. Maya didn't know why she had to close her eyes, especially when it seemed her darling was only asking the people if they could kindly stop staring, but when she heard a loud impact she instinctively flinched away from the noise. By the time she opened her eyes, she found herself staring at the front door of their house, making her blink in quite a bit of surprise. Hadn't they just been in town? Well, Maya, sorry that we had to cut our outing a little short, but I'm happy to say that before that point I really enjoyed our day together. And now that we've been, at least partially intimate, there is something I'd like to tell you, and something I'd like to show you, though not necessarily in that order. Maya blinked a few times, following her blonde host into the house as he spoke, still in a bit of a daze from finding herself suddenly all the way across town from where they had been. From there to the house was not a small distance, she knew. Darling. Is how we got here so suddenly just now part of what you want to tell me? I'm really confused about that. First, I want to show you something, Maya, and then everything will be explained. Of course, first we should probably get our guests from their hiding spots before anything, right? Blinking again at her darling's words, she was surprised when he disappeared into the living room closet and came back with a sulking Mono-eye girl. She was wearing what looked like a suite, quite a bit similar to someone else the Lamia knew. Do you think she works with Miss Smith? Yup, that's exactly who she works with. Maya-chan, meet one of my new coworkers, whom I've been given the files on, purely so I wouldn't be surprised when I actually met them, of course. Though it leaves me wondering where Miss Tayanisha has hidden herself. Oh dear, she's probably stuck. Miss Monaco, if you wouldn't mind retrieving Miss Smith, I'll go find the rest and see if they need help escaping their hiding spots. Why, you're being awfully okay with us basically breaking into your house. PSSH, you lot aren't the first to do it. I'm just surprised you're the first to not be caught in my traps. Or perhaps it's just you. The blush was all he needed to know, and he patted the Mono-eye girl on the head gently. Maya, please follow Monako-san while she leads you to the rest of her coworkers. You're keyed to the house's defenses, so they should deactivate if you're nearby. Having no clue what was going on, but trusting her darling explicitly, Maya gave a small salute and a happy agreement, before going off with the one-eyed girl, presumably to find Miss Smith first. Naruto meanwhile chuckled softly and began to sniff the air. His sense of smell for women was better than an Inuzuka's nose for everything else. He could tell exactly where every female in his house was at the moment, and he quickly headed towards the largest scent source. Tayanisha-san was physically the tallest of his new coworkers, based on her file, so he was quite sure she was very uncomfortable in whatever trap she was stuck in, and possibly using as a hiding spot. Lo and behold, he was correct, and it made him feel like a jerk when he found out which trap she had set off. Looking down, he scratched the back of his head before he reached down and touched her horn, sending a pulse of his chakra over her body. The seal of the trap she triggered in his pantry quickly dissolved, and the large, womanly extra-species girl gasped as he proceeded to help her out of the much-too-small cubby she'd been forced into by the trap. It had never been meant for someone her size, and had multiple cracks in it, but he was able to safely pull her out. He'd just fix up the damage later. I apologize, Tayanisha-san, but you should have known better than to follow Miss Smith on her snooping. Blushing herself at being caught in a trap after said snooping, the Oni could only giggle softly and give apologies of her own. Naruto waved each one off, of course, but that didn't stop her from giving them. At least she did think to apologize. The little naked lowly girl he'd found attached to the ceiling of his linen closet by her, but didn't think to give even one such apology. To say nothing of the zombie he found in his room, bound and gagged in his closet. She'd simply questioned his hobbies when she'd been released from the trap she triggered while searching his room. Finally Naruto took the three he'd found to the living room, where Maya, a blushing Monako, and a flustered but trying to act dignified Ms. Smith waited. It seems you decided to go snooping when I'm pretty sure I told you not to. Maybe I didn't though, but meh, it should have been common sense not to snoop. For all you knew, I could have had some kind of room that doesn't open from the inside, and you'd be trapped till I discovered you in there. Anyway, enough of that, seriously don't start. Since you're all here, I figure I'll share something with you all that I had planned to show to Maya here. Motioning for everyone to stay put, Naruto left the room for a few moments, only to return with a large glass orb containing what looked like a massive scale to the size of the orb anyway cylindrical building of sorts. Placing the orb on the table, Naruto spun the item till the bridge of the building pointed towards his left a bit, since no one was in that direction, and it wouldn't therefore activate the magic. This is my resort, an item given to me long ago by some friends that I'd made. It's come a long way since then, and I've stocked it quite well, but that's beside the point. I'm sure you're all wondering what the heck it is, and what it has to do with anything, or in Maya's case, what I wanted to tell her. Well, first let me just tell you, Miss Smith, that you should probably go buy a lottery ticket or two the moment we're done here. Seriously, you lucked out when you found me, and when you got me on your team, troublemaking aside, you couldn't have asked for a better agent to help whip whomever you want into shape, or any number of things. Smiling, Naruto adjusted his glasses and gave a sigh of nostalgia. I am Uzumaki Naruto, and I am a ninja of considerable ability. I'll tell you more once we're all inside my resort, so don't worry. Everything will be explained in due time. Naruto yawned and stretched, surprised to find that he had slept longer than Maya had, seeing as the girl wasn't being a body heat hog. If he was smelling correctly, she was actually doing laundry out on his balcony, where the clothing was usually hung out to dry. Because fuck dryers, all tumbling his clothing around and shit, shrinking his shorts. He didn't need people staring at his ass unless it was a lady because his shorts were too small to fit properly. Framing his glorious cheeks was just fine, but when the only womanly part on him was inadvertently put on display by two small, dryer-shrunk shorts, he drew the line at drawing any man's attention like that. Yesterday had been quite an ordeal for him, showing Maya and his coworkers and technical boss his resort, explaining to them his previous line of work, and exactly why it made snooping in his house a bad idea. They were of course all freaked out by the apparent magic of the place, but he had managed to calm them down quickly enough. It helped that they were all female, and of age, even the dark-skinned lowlies surprisingly enough therefore making them susceptible to his charm ability. Yawning again as he stepped out onto the balcony, he stopped for a moment to pick up one of the baskets of freshly cleaned clothes, going about putting them on the empty line. Maya herself was just taking down the rest of the clothes on another line, all the while making a little happy tune, composed entirely of la 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 la. Which brought a smile to his face as surely as the one on her own. You sure seem happy today, Maya-chan. Any particular reason? Blushing at him in response to the question, the girl giggled and sidled up to him, nudging him a bit. Ah, darling, you know exactly why I'm so happy. Despite the freaky magic stuff, and the less freaky ninja stuff, you were so good the other day. Wah, and it was just your fingers and tail. Eee! Darling, I can't wait till I can experience more of that feeling from yesterday. Laughing softly at the girl's excitement, Naruto rubbed her head affectionately as she picked up the basket she'd filled with dry clothing, taking it inside and closing the door behind her. This was so bugs and other stuff couldn't easily get into the house. However, when she closed the door, she hadn't expected to hear a scuffle coming from where she just left. Opening the door after putting her basket down, she curiously peeked out, wondering if her darling had maybe accidentally knocked down one of the clotheslines or something. Her eyes widened as she spotted a young girl, or at least it looked like it, with blue hair and blue feathered wings for arms, flying away with her darling in her clawed feet. Darling! Swinging his legs as he sat upside down on the branch he'd been dropped onto, Naruto stared at the bird girl, the harpy, he reminded himself, as she did the same to him. Her look was one of shock and awe, and even a little excitement. He hoped she didn't decide to try and mimic him. He'd let her kidnap him on a whim. He didn't do it so he could get her hurt trying to copy him. How are you doing that? Poppy wants to do it too. Before she could swing herself down and try to do as he did like some kind of monkey bird, Naruto swung himself up and snatched her up. She squawked and wiggled in his grip, only ceasing once he let her down. Humming curiously, he picked her up again, and once again she started wiggling, only to stop and cock her head curiously once he put her back down. Naruto did this several times to amuse himself, and each time the girl merely cocked her head once she was sitting back on the branch. It seemed she had some kind of instinct, or something, to squirm when she was picked up under the arms. Wings. So, your name is Poppy, right? And you're a harpy? The name's Naruto, nice to meet you. Poppy gave a happy wave, introducing herself again, even though she'd already told him her name. In fact, through her second introduction, she got confused somehow and mixed up her name and her species quite humorously. Naruto laughed softly and hopped off the branch to catch her attention before her brain melted. Yup, she was a harpy, no doubt about that. She was an adorable bird brain. Shaking his head to clear it of the mean thoughts, he perked up as the girl landed near him, to which he gave a small nod of his head. So, why'd you grab me like that, Poppy-san? You know you aren't supposed to be out here without your host family, right? I'm off duty right now, but technically I'll have to bring you in if they aren't here with you. Completely lost, the harpy merely tilted her head a little. But that's why I brought you with me. Well, I'm not your host, so that really doesn't work, but… Hee, this could be kind of fun. How about we go get some ice cream? Ice cream? Is it food? Can we get some? Laughing lightly, Naruto nodded and pointed to the truck behind him, which he could smell due to the icy treats it was selling. It helped that one of the children being bought an ice cream by their parent was a little girl. His nose wasn't discriminatory of age, only he himself was. Without even waiting for him to turn around, the harpy, now with big sparkly eyes, grabbed him and proceeded to drag him towards the ice cream truck. 1, 2, 3. Counting in his head, Naruto schooled his face to be as stoic as possible, purely to hide the unmanly giggles which threatened to escape him. Turning to him, the harpy looked from him to the arm she held in her grasp, before letting it go and stepping back, thankfully not 3 times. Who are you? Managing to restrain all but a strangled snark at the girl's cluelessness, really fond memories of one of his old lovers popping into his head, Naruto shook his head and reached for the girl. She looked at him with caution, but couldn't help the surprise that overtook her when his hand fell on her head and began to gently rub. Why was it so warm? Taking the girl with him, reminding her with the simple expedient of pointing at the truck and saying ice cream every 3 steps, Naruto soon found himself relaxing on a bench with the girl. She was quite energetic, and very happy as well, all simply because she got to try some ice cream. Watching her as he held a simple vanilla popsicle, a smile spread on his face as she held her cone with both wing arms. She explained with numerous errors how she could never remember the rule about not going out alone, and how she'd slipped her coordinator's notice many times. Of course, he almost choked on his popsicle when the girl had told him they planned to, quote, deflower her, end quote, if she gave them the slip again. Of course, he knew what she really meant, but her naivety-red bird brain had already placed the image in his head. Too bad she wasn't right. He'd have loved to be assigned that duty. Acting with reflexes born of dangerous ninja work, Naruto caught Poppy's ice cream before it could even move an inch from the girl's grasp. She jumped a little, but gave him a smile as she clasped her wings over his hand, letting him help her grip her ice cream with a small blush on her cheeks. Thank you. Poppy would have been so sad if Poppy's ice cream had fallen. I haven't even gotten one bite yet. Naruto simply held his own popsicle in his mouth as his other hand moved to pet the harpy's head. She really reminded him of his old lover, though he'd a feeling any harpy could do so with the mannerisms of the species. But it wasn't just a horrible memory or general empty-headedness. It was the innocence the girl had, almost childlike in intensity. Before he knew it, he was brought back from his thoughts by mutterings of the people around him and Poppy. Raising an eyebrow, he looked at said harpy and snorted as he saw her messy face as she ate her ice cream. She wasn't being as careful as she should have, and it was all over her face and chest. Sighing, he let her finish, watching her devour the cone before informing her of the mess she had become. She seemed quite shocked, really, and as if being a bird brain was contagious, Naruto made the mistake of looking away from her for a moment, thinking of where she could get cleaned up. When he looked back at her, she was already naked and in the process of flopping down into the fountain in the center of the park. Slap! Palming his face firmly, Naruto dragged his glasses off and swiftly turned to face the now blushing crowd, sending his chakra in a blanket over them as he weaved one-handed seals. Megan, so shoshitsu! To everyone watching, immediately it looked as if the strange young man with the tail, wings and horns, along with his bird-like young friend, had simply disappeared. The secondary effect of the genjutsu kicked in then, and the onlookers completely forgot there had ever been anyone there. Sighing as he rubbed his temples, Naruto looked back at Poppy the harpy with a glower, though seeing her splashing and relaxing in the fountain quickly stole away any animosity he could have had. She was just too cute and sexy, usually a strange combination, to stay mad at. Poppy, it's time to get out of the bath now, you hear me? No. I know, why don't you bathe with me? Come on, you're really nice, so I'll allow it just this once. She gave him a coy look, and he deadpanned at her, tail twitching, along with his pants, at the offer. More specifically, the way she was looking at him after having made the offer. "Darling? Where are you?" Face palming once more, Naruto looked back at Maya, unwittingly caught in his genjutsu. Did he drop it so she could find them, inadvertently reminding everyone that there was a naked bird girl in the park's fountain? Or did he leave her till he could get some clothes on Poppy? Much choices, such sarcasm. He gave a half-assed wave to the genjutsu struck Lamia as Poppy decided for him, pulling him into the fountain with her by the back of his head, plopping herself in his lap as she went for his clothes. Since he wasn't really fighting it, she got them off with little effort, though she did stop once his shorts were at his ankles when she spotted his not-so-little friend. As it were. He found it both amusing and quite ego-boosting at the heat that found the bird girl's cheeks as she stared at his beep. Lemon skipped. Once he had managed to clean them up and get them dressed, Naruto let the genjutsu fall as Poppy climbed onto him and snuggled up to him, her wings around him and one of her legs slung over his hips. This is what Maya saw as she glided up to the fountain. She had no way to explain it except ninja trickery either. 1 second she could practically feel her darling, but she couldn't see him. But then suddenly he was there at the fountain, getting all cuddly with the bird brain who'd stolen him away. Maya's angry hisses did not sound pleasant to Naruto, but he paid the sounds no mind as the angry Lamia approached. "Darling! Why, you stupid bird brain! That's no fair! I want to cuddle with darling too!" Sweat dropping at the girl's blatant disregard for his kidnapping in favor of the position he was in, Naruto found he could only roll his eyes at the girl. Though, shamefully enough, he didn't do anything when Maya instigated a scuffle of sorts between her and the bird girl. If he had to grade the fight, it was more of a schoolyard catfight than anything, not even good enough to be called a rumble. He'd have to work with Maya on that. If she was going to be working with him, then she'd have to be skilled enough to not be labeled a bother. As mean as that may sound, it was for her own good. Grumbling at how much he sounded like a parent, he retrieved his glasses swiftly and dashed between the fighting girls. With superior strength he separated them, holding Maya by the back of her shirt, which now was missing the front, due to claws, revealing her frieze to the world, and holding Poppy under the arms with his remaining arm. As expected, she squawked and began wiggling. Maya glowered at her darling and the stupid bird brain who'd stolen him from her earlier. If she didn't know better, she'd say they were pretty close. But that delicious smell all over the bird bitch couldn't possibly be real. They'd been cuddling when she found them. That had to be the source of the smell, after all. Nothing else happened. Right. Okay. So, where's your host family? You're in the exchange program, right? Naruto's tail swished around amusedly as he watched Poppy squirm under the nice police officer's gaze. He was a nice guy, but work was work, and he had a job to do. Naruto could commend work ethic like that, even if he wished that for once the guy would look the other way. Pulling Poppy's head to his chest, he rubbed her head affectionately as he reached into his pocket with his tail. "Hey Meta, she's with me, Kay? I just started work with one of the coordinators, Ms. Smith. So it's okay as long as I'm with her. Don't worry, man. I'll make sure she finds her host family, Kay?" "Ah, Naruto-san, you finally took my advice and joined the force, huh?" "Well, not the way I've been telling you should, but I guess it's a start." "Okay then, everything looks in order, Harpy-chan. Thank you again for saving the girl from the tree. That was good work." Poppy smiled brightly, shooting another salute towards the officer, whom returned it with a smile before riding away on his bicycle. Not 2 seconds after Naruto began rubbing Poppy's head affectionately again did he have to strike out with his free hand to catch a small plastic card. Tilting his head, Maya peeking over his shoulder to get a look as well, they found themselves looking at what seemed to be Poppy's interspecies exchange ID card. "Well, look at that, you weren't fibbing to poor Officer Meta. You did find Poppy's host family. In fact, I'm looking at him right now." Rolling his eyes, Naruto childishly stuck his tongue out at Smith, Poppy mimicking him playfully as she leaned her head against his chest affectionately. "I wasn't fibbing anyway. If I couldn't find her host family, I'd take her in anyway, you know? Not like you're doing your job anyway. Your scent was still stuck in her feathers, you lazy. Come on, I got some coffee at my house. Don't worry, the traps all deactivate once I step foot in the house, unless they were tripped before I got home, anyway. Examining himself in the mirror, Naruto twisted and turned as he looked over the uniform he'd gotten for his new job working with Ms. Smith and her Harem team. After meeting them the other day, of course after freeing them from whatever traps they tripped while snooping, and then showing them his resort, he'd gotten a bit of information on them that wasn't in the files he'd been given beforehand. Manako was a shy Monai girl, who had low confidence in herself and was always sure that people would make fun of her or dislike her once they saw she only had one big eye. Well, Naruto had disproved that, and the moment he could introduce her to his neighbor Kurusu, he'd disprove it again. Naruto just didn't give a crap about the one-eye thing. He had a tiny, empty wallet for such occasions, to show people where he kept the fucks he gave, and Kurusu was just way too nice of a guy to care. Naruto was an incubus, so charming ladies came as naturally to him as looking them in the eyes without his glasses, or just being around them long enough. Kurusu was just so nice a guy that Lady Charming came almost as naturally to him as it did to Naruto. If he hadn't known better, he'd be tempted to believe that Kurusu was an incubus from this world. Dapple was a trickster of sorts, and a lowly after his own heart in a way. She loved to pull pranks, and though they differed from his own, she was quite good at them due to her shape-shifting ability. More useful than a henge, she didn't need hand seals or chakra, and her transformations were almost perfect. The only problem was that she was perpetually nude, only her hair covering her up. It was like a dark-skinned, lowly version of his Oryoku no Jutsu. Zambina was rambunctious and playful, with a love for zombie movies and a penchant for teasing her co-workers. Except Tayanisha. Secretly, he plotted with her to mess with his neighbor. They planned to someday go out with the guy, and while hanging out, drop certain bits from the zombies so they could watch Kurusu freak while sewing them back on. She tried it with him during the day they were stuck in the resort, but he hadn't so much as twitched. Tayanisha was, to put it simply, a weapon of mass comfort. The aura she gave off was motherly, comforting, and relaxing, all in practically weaponized grades. Just being around her made him want to hug her and just go to sleep as she petted his head. He still had no clue where the last few hours of their stay in the resort went, but he'd literally never felt so relaxed when he came back to reality. Finally, and he'd had to sneak the time during the night in the resort, he learned that Ms. Smith was a squirter. He'd got her in one of his private stock rooms, and since she wasn't exactly against it, per se, he'd been able to charm her quite quickly. Maybe that was why she'd been bold enough to still show up without any panties after he'd snuck into her place and hidden them all. He'd also cleaned up her place, because it was atrocious, how she'd lived before. How such a sexy lady could have absolutely no regard for the cleanliness of her house was beyond him. Dear Lord, I've channeled Shizune. Shaking his head before he could sulk, he slapped his cheeks to get himself out of his thoughts and back to inspecting himself before he went with Miss Smith on a job. He'd be leaving Maya and Poppy home for now, but he'd asked Kurusu to come spend the day with them. Ms. Smith had even issued the young man a temporary host ID. If nothing else, it would give the boy a look at what being a host family would potentially be like. Looking back in the mirror, he admired the outfit. A form-fitting black bodysuit made of surprisingly tough latex, not unlike Guy and Lee's old outfit but so much better. There was also a yellow-orange flak jacket with orange shoulder guards along with a utility belt with orange pouches for storing stuff. He'd opted to not get the shoulder or knee pads, and instead went for something a little more youthful. Wrapped around his hands, fingers and all the way up to his elbows, was light orange gauze, with a little extra padding around the knuckles for protection. Not his, but he didn't want to kill whoever he ended up punching during work. Finally, to help him remember his old taijutsu sensei, he had a pair of combo leg warmers / hardened leather greaves on his legs. They were orange, and a bit poofy around his shins to provide some cushion for kicks. It looked a little different than his coworkers' outfits, but he was a guy, damn it. He was fine wearing girly bottoms, because his butt was admittedly womanly, but the rest of him wasn't girly enough to wear full-on girls' clothes. Still, if he could get the outfit in spandex, maybe he'd go around like some kind of black and orange version of Guy-sensei with not-so-scary unlikely alive eyebrows? Shrugging and starting to whistle, Naruto exited his room and hopping down the stairs to the first floor as Kurusu was entering the house. Asa! Yo Kurusu, ready to see what it could be like as a host family? Before you begin, I want you to know that what you are likely to experience today is in no way a measure of what being a host is normally like. Pro tip, ask if you can get someone besides Alania, at the least. Sexually aggressive, possessive, and strong enough to pop you silly humans. If Naruto noticed Kurusu sweating bullets as he spoke, he ignored it completely, patting the young man on the back and dragging him into his living room, where Maya, Poppy and Ms. Smith waited. Darling! I thought you said I was supposed to go with you when you went to work. Now Maya-chan, that was dependent on if I could get you ready in time or not. Sadly enough, I couldn't spend any time getting you ready just yet, and I can't put this off till you're up to snuff. Don't worry, I'll work with you and Poppy when I get back and relieve Kurusu here from you two duty. Rubbing the glowering Lania's head affectionately, and hugging both her and Poppy as the harpy latched onto his side like a limpet, Naruto gave both girls a squeeze before letting them go. Though his harpy/limpet had to be pulled off, thankfully the quickly proven method of picking her up from under the arms worked, and the moment his hands grabbed her under the arms she squawked, the wiggling starting the moment he lifted her up. Ms. Smith giggled and stood from her seat, dusting herself off for show of course before clearing her throat. It's time we got going, darling-kun. We've got a mission already set up that we need for you to take care of. Think of it as a test of your abilities, though the rest of the team will be on standby, ready to jump in and assist you should you need it. Just curious, but just what kind of mission did you get for me? Oh, well, you told us you were a ninja, so I just asked for anything that required lots of stealth. Slap. Naruto's palm met his face loudly, and he grumbled lowly, glowering at the human woman smiling at him with that stupid smug face of hers. You know what? Fine, let's go. I've snuck around with Orange before. This can't possibly be too hard. The level of awareness people have in this place is deplorable. The genin from my village could rob all of y'all blind and have a damn good chance of not getting caught, Databeo. Slap. This time Naruto slapped his hand over his mouth, mortified at what had just slipped past his lips. Oh dear log, please buy all that was holy and wooden, don't let them have noticed. Databeo? Darling, what's that mean? Poppy knows. It means believe it, right? No. It doesn't mean anything, that's just what those stupid Westerners decided to translate it as. What? GUH, and nothing. It was nothing, you all heard nothing. The glare he sent at everyone made them raise their hands, or wings in Poppy's case, in defense. Glad that they had decided to oh so graciously drop the issue, Naruto crossed his arms and turned back to Smith. So you mean stealth job, let's go. Now. So. My mission is to sneak into the spooky warehouse. Yup. Take out all the heavily armed and surprisingly well-trained guards. Find the smuggled extra species people. Yes, sir. Get them out without setting off any of the cameras, or alerting any of the people I don't take out before finding them. Up. And finally, I have to do all this without alerting anyone to my presence, setting of any alarms, or leaving any evidence that I was there. Yeah, it's like I didn't just get through explaining this to you. Doppel? Do you think Ms. Smith can sleep with her eyes open? Ihihei. No, but I'd love to hear what you have planned. Grinning, Naruto poked the shapeshifter Loli's forehead gently, before standing and stretching a bit while she pouted and glared at him. Maybe I'll let you see what I'm going to do to her when you're old enough. He was just teasing, but the angry reaction the shapeshifter had was definitely too funny for him to just not do it. As he left to do the mission, he actually had to make a mental note to remember some of what she was threatening him with for his books. Damn, who knew such a small-looking girl could have such a dirty, imaginative mind? Sneaking through the halls of the warehouse had been pathetically easy. The guards posted were heavily armed and surprisingly well-trained, yes, but they were still nothing compared to him. The ones up top had been weighted down with heavy equipment, and were woefully slow and cumbersome. They hadn't stood a chance, and now each and every one of them was unconscious, and to add insult to injury, he glued dandy mustaches and monocles to each and every single one's face. It took a bit of extra time to reach the basement of the warehouse, sure, but it was time well spent in his opinion. Of course, he'd had to come up with something else to do when he'd actually found the basement. The halls were so narrow there was only enough room for one person to enter at a time, though there was plenty of height. Traveling via ceiling, Naruto continued about nabbing up any guard foolish enough unwitting enough to wander under him. Each one was grabbed up like a spider and glued to the ceiling with seals, and hidden with another seal to look like light fixtures. When he finally reached the holding area for the extra species people who were smuggled into the city, he figured he had been far too easy on the people he'd left behind. It was no wonder this mission needed lots of stealth. Each prisoner had a length of log-damned cord around their necks. If he was found, he had no doubt those lengths of cord would be detonated to help get rid of the evidence. Opening the cells holding the extra species people, mostly females to his growing anger, was easy. Convincing them to exit the cells was an ordeal. He found out why when he coaxed a young centaur girl into trying it. The moment she reached past the open door, the cord started beeping. Luckily, simply nudging her back into the cell was enough to stop the stupid cord from exploding, but that left him with the conundrum of getting all of them out without them losing their heads. He had little doubt that they were set to go off if they were tampered with, or removal was attempted without knowing just how to do it. Well, that was an easy fix, a little embarrassing, but the incredibly useful skill provided was something he needed, incredible freezing ability without the fear of harming someone. With a burst of chakra towards a small but intricate seal just above the base of his tail, a little below but between his last set of wings, a puff of smoke heralded his change of clothes. Truly, it simply placed a new article over his outfit, however. A pure white kimono with ice blue coloring on the sleeves and a red obi was now adorning him. It was a woman's kimono, and since his wings normally appeared as if by magic a fraction of an inch above the skin of his back, they were still showing. His tail was hidden, however, being firmly attached. Okay, if you could all approach the door of the cell one at a time, I'll have you all out of here in no time. But please, be very quiet, all of you. No one knows I'm here, or that I'm freeing you, and I'd like to keep it that way. Nervously, it was the young centaur from earlier who approached, a brave face thrown on before her fellow extra species. Smiling gently at the adorable brave future warrior, Naruto reached into the cell and pinched the makeshift cord collar between two fingers. Quite quickly the cord froze completely, and Naruto snapped it swiftly in two places, removing it from the girl's neck. Before he knew it, she had her arms around his waist and was crying silently into his chest. He gave the girl a soft smile, stroking her hair gently and shushing her softly. There, it will be all right now. I'm getting you all out of here, and you'll be back home before you know it, okay? Ugh, the frost-last kimono always gives me the chills when I'm done wearing it. Is that what you used to get the prisoners out of their cells? It's interesting to know you have something that can freeze cord enough to render it useless. Some of the extra species people you freed likened you to a uchiha with wings and horns. Yeah, it's something I got from home, before I came to this place. It's one of a number of items which grant me abilities that would make them fantastical. Fantastical. Miss Smith rolled her eyes at the young man's giggling over a word, as if he were some sort of man-child. Shaking her head, she shrugged and went back to commanding her squads. In the end, she had been surprised when the blonde had led such a large group out of the warehouse, more so when he'd handed over a small notepad detailing locations of the bad guys. It had been so deathly silent ever since he'd entered the building that they were all beginning to think something had gone horribly wrong. Smith herself had begun to expect some sort of demands to be sent to them for the young man's return. At the very least, she had feared the mission would end in failure, and the loss of not only a very promising young man, but also a large group of smuggled extra-species prisoners. Well, I guess this means you really are some kind of ninja. We interrogated the prisoners you took, after getting the ones below ground off the ceiling, of course, and no one saw or heard you coming the whole time. We managed to catch the boss of the operation quite by surprise. Of course, he tried detonating the cord, but thanks to you we had nothing to worry about. That actually put Naruto a little at ease. If the technical boss of the operation he just busted was in the building, which meant he couldn't go about ordering more people to be kidnapped. Of course. That also meant he missed the guy on his way through, and he could no longer show his appreciation for allowing him the opportunity to practice his stealth. Well, I'm glad you caught the guy, and I'm of course very glad you believe that I'm a ninja now, because now I don't have to prove it in other ways. More specifically, I won't have to prove it in ways that leave your heart going all kinds of doki-doki as you pray that no one catches us. The grin he gave Smith only made her sweat drop a bit, though a small blush did slowly spread across her face at the implications of his words. Omake, told you I was a ninja. Glowing eyes stayed glued to the prey, so sure in her safety in the workplace, so sure the owner of the glowing eyes would be unable to take her where so many could just wander by and spot them if only by looking upwards. The patient wait for the opportunity to catch the prey came quickly enough. She left towards the bathroom, providing the hunter the perfect chance to capture and have his prey. Pulling the cloak tighter around himself, his presence all but nil, his visibility to all others zero, Uzumaki Naruto stalked his prey through the hall, waiting for her to reach the contact point. Not all the lights in the building were on in the building so late at night, leaving plenty of shadows for him to hide in. Not that he needed the shadows to hide. It was simply more exciting to not use such cheap items as the camouflage tarp. Well, it was cheap in this world, because no one had eyes trained to look for the small differences between an actual wall and a camouflage tarp. Finally, his target reached the point he'd been waiting for. With a swift movement, he had her mouth covered and a hand around her waist to steady her as he stole her off to a corner of the ceiling in a shadowed hall, no lights on in the small stretch. Not all lights were on, true, but likewise they weren't all off either. Ms. Smith struggled against the grip of her unknown assailant as he suddenly became visible, and it definitely was a he, if the bulge pushing against her but was anything to go by. Lemon skipped. Her stomach bloated up as if she were in the middle of a pregnancy, a thought that both horrified and elated her, though she blamed that strange mix on the effects his fluids had on her. When finally both were finished, Smith found she was quite exhausted, though she had no idea why. She'd drank enough coffee recently to keep her up for hours yet. Vision blinking, Smith found herself in a much too bright room after what seemed to her as a simple blink of the eyes, and in what she vaguely identified as a bathroom stall upon another blink. Vaguely, before she seemingly passed out, she heard Naruto speaking to her, if a little muted due to her surprise exhaustion. I told you I was a ninja. No one will even notice you missing, and if you're found before you recover, it'll be as if you fell asleep on the toilet. Much less embarrassing than being discovered on a work-time tryst, methinks. So, anything you wanted to tell me, Naruto? I don't know, maybe some kind of apology for leaving me with those two the other day? Oh come on Kurusu, they weren't that bad were they? You're a tough guy, I know at least Poppy wasn't that much of a handful. I'd wager she was enamored with the game system I got recently. Well, that's true at least, but I don't think Maya-san likes me. Like at all. Naruto's only response was to laugh boisterously, patting Kurusu on the back firmly, getting a groan from the boy as the action aggravated some bruises he'd gotten from Maya when Naruto had left him with his two extra species guests the other night. Well, don't worry about it, Kurusu. I'm quite sure you won't get anyone nearly as troublesome as my guests can be. Who knows, maybe you'll get a simple extra species guest, like a cat girl. The blonde laughed as Kurusu grumbled, claiming that it didn't really matter what he got, they'd be his guest from the time they moved in. That's what he liked about the guy. He was polite and caring no matter whom you were, and he was always at the defense of others. Well, this is where we part ways, man. Stay safe out here. That sign says purse snatching is common around here. Don't go playing hero ya here? I don't got many friends of the male type to hang around with these days. Can't lose the one I do have to stupid heroics, right? Kurusu's sweat dropped but nodded as he bumped fists with Naruto, a strange sign of friendship that the blonde had started up when they had officially became friends. And don't drop the groceries either, man. One of those bags is mine. Thanks for carrying it for me, by the way. Come by later and we'll hang out. Poppy's been asking me to bring you over to play games with her again. Eh? But we just played yesterday. Dude, no offense, but Poppy probably forgot the moment you put down the controller. You're lucky she remembered you, though not exactly by name. Shrugging, Naruto gave Kurusu a small shove to get him moving, grinning and lashing his tail about behind him. Well, now that his one male friend, who was sadly boring a lot of the time, was gone, he was free to investigate the source of that weird galloping sound that had started up as they approached the corner. The source of which made itself known the moment he stepped out into said corner. Damn, Kurusu got all the luck, going a different way. If he'd been pure human, this would have probably killed him. As it was, the impact of something large and heavy against him merely threw him into the air. It was surprising, yes, but he understood what had happened as he looked back towards where he'd been hit. Was it some kind of truck? Oh ho? Centaur, huh? Standing before him, looking at him curiously, a centaur girl stood. She was big, but from the look of her human half obviously still a bit young, probably only as old, maybe a couple years older, as Maya. It seems I have happened upon some rather poor luck, running into another extra species instead of a human as I had intended. Ah, Ms. Centaur, your luck is just fine. I'm mostly human, so as far as the government lackeys are concerned, I'm just a little bit special, for a human. Truly? Thou art lying, art thou? 'Tis fate then, for certain. Thou must be the man fated to become my master. What? Wait, let me guess, centaur tradition, right? Well, I've never heard of a head-on collision method before. Trying something new? Why, yes. I have utilized one of Japan's magical charms to increase my chances of meeting my fated master. Japanese charm, you said? Which one? So far as I know, all the charms in this place are a bunch of bunk. Humph, as expected of a foreigner, however, even you should know and respect the charm I speak of. If one runs into an intersection and bumps into someone, they are your fated one. 'Tis a powerful Japanese charm of fortune-telling magic, is it not? Naruto had to keep quite a tight rein on his emotions at that point, because if he didn't, he had a feeling horseshoe marks might join his whisker marks, because he was very close to dropping out of the air and laughing till his lungs leapt from his mouth. That's not a Japanese magic charm. It just sounds to me like you picked something out of a manga or anime. Don't get me wrong, those are all a part of Japanese culture, so it fits with what you're here for, but I am sorry, I'd like to be, but I don't think I'm your fated one. While he was trying in earnest to contain his chuckles, giggles, snorts, and other such noises, the centaur girl seemed quite intent on helping those noises escape his lips. Perhaps I should have brought the toast after all, buttered of course. Just like that, Naruto fell to the ground with a thud, and his only saving grace was the centaur's naivety and his hands, which were covering his mouth so only choked snorts were heard, instead of the loud guffawing that was trying to get him kicked. Luckily his impromptu savior came in the form of a purse snatcher, something which was warned about on the signs posted to every few street lamps within the intersections. The target was a pretty young woman, and the moment the man had snatched her purse, Naruto was up and ready to stop the man. Only one problem, his vision had suddenly gone dark, and marshmallowy softness enveloped his face. Oh, he knew this feeling. His face had been stuffed against the centaur girl's chest, her exceptionally well-endowed chest. Mentally sighing at the unfairness of the moment, seeing as he couldn't truly enjoy it since he hadn't seduced her yet, Naruto vaguely heard the centaur calling the purse snatcher a whore son, and couldn't help but snicker into her fubs at her dialect. It was like she was some kind of knight. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on just whose perspective you were using, the girl quickly realized just where she had some unknown male's head pressed to. Her face grew quite flushed, and Naruto found himself released quickly, the girl's arms going instead to covering her chest, an apology spilling from her lips. Bah, don't worry about it, way worse ways to die, right? That scoundrel has been coming hither and snatching bags from their rightful owners. As a member of the proud centaur race, this cannot stand. I cannot let him go. Upon my sword do I vow, I shall capture that whore son. Naruto really had to applaud the girl for somehow hiding the sword from him. He had been positive that it hadn't been there mere moments before. Perhaps he just wasn't paying attention? Well, if he hadn't been, he had two very big reasons. Due to the interspecies laws, however, I am not to lay a hand upon him. 'Twas the reason I was searching here for a master, one that would surely fight alongside me. I'm gonna have to get her a permit for that thing, aren't I? It can't be helped then, right? You say your charm brought you to me, or me to you or some such. Well, I guess there's not a problem if it's me. I wasn't lying when I said I was mostly human, and the government has recognized that. I have a special ID and everything. I can do harm as it were to both species, and I can be out by myself, so there's really no problem. I also kind of work for one of the coordinators now, so as I said, it really can't be helped. You have my thanks then. Quite chivalrous of you to help me in this deed, master. Ugh, please don't call me that. Let's just go. Wait. As my master, thou has the right to, ride upon my back. Nonsense, I'm well aware of those centaur traditions and what have you. No way am I putting you through that, we just met. I also like to think I'm a nice guy, so there's that too. Anyway, come on, he's getting away. Before the centaur could protest, Naruto flared his wings out and took to the sky. For this feature of himself alone, he'd had quite the badass moniker if he said so himself. He didn't often, and no one yet called him that here, but he liked the name. It may also have contributed to his absolute love of that jet fighter simulator game. Watch out, thief, none escape from Sora no Godatsusha. Remember, keep track of where you are going, don't trample anyone, and if you use that sword, I'd better not see it flash towards anyone but the purse thief. Centauria, as she had introduced herself upon setting off after the purse snatcher, simply nodded, galloping along at a fast pace, quickly gaining on the fleeing purse snatcher. Glad that his words had been heeded, Naruto simply veered away from the girl, though he kept speed with her, and used his higher vantage point to give directions should they be needed. It wasn't really needed, as she caught up to the guy soon enough, but he still felt more comfortable being able to steer her clear of hapless civilians. A Model 36, huh? Well, if he thinks that silly land vehicle is the fastest. Nah, this world isn't ready for my baby. Sigh, too bad too, these streets look perfect for her. The road turned suddenly, the purse thief blazing down it on his vehicle, and he couldn't help but notice that Centauria took the turn like a champ too. Well, he couldn't disappoint, could he? Angling his wings back a bit, wind built around him as he sped forward, having slowed down a bit when he'd seen the turn coming. Lowering himself close to the street, and the turning wall, Naruto angled his chest towards it, and grinned as he followed it almost like the turn on a water slide. Well, a good water slide anyway. Bypassing the centaur, and even the thief on the motor scooter, Naruto held off a guy rolling a flatbed dolly carrying large jugs of water. Sorry guy, high-speed chase going on, wouldn't want you to get hurt, right? Thank you. Naruto merely grinned and threw the guy a thumbs up as the thief and centaur sped past him. Woo! If this guy wasn't some purse-snatching dick, I'd seriously have to go riding with him sometime. Damn, haven't had an excuse to go this fast since I got to here. Suffice to say, our blonde Incubus was having an experience that was close to the time of his life. After actually having had said experience, few others really got close, but high-speed flying was one of those close experiences. Centauria-san, you don't really plan on jumping after that guy, do you? Not judging your strength or determination, just the safety of a basically mature centaur jumping that far down. And the centaur girl would have injured herself with the fall too, so... The moment she jumped, Naruto was already going through hand seals. Futon, Rock Assurin! Wind gathered under the leaping centaur. She was surprised, most certainly, but she didn't question it in her quest to capture the thief, even such a large distance away from the actual theft. The purse thief was quite surprised to find a blade suddenly at his neck, the centaur who'd chased him galloping right alongside him, holding the sword in question. I shan't let you go free, scoundrel! Master, please be of service, capture this horse on whilst the chance allows. Hey, you got it, Centauria-san, one crook, sunny side up. Wh-wa? Crash. Well, Miss Smith, seems I've been chosen to be Miss Centauria's homestay, though I would love some help getting her to stop calling me master. There are a very few select times I let someone call me that, and you know it's the funniest thing. She has yet to visit my room, nor I hers, nor have we laid together, and I'm pretty damn sure she isn't that kind of girl. Ahaha, Well, it's to be expected, she's from a long line of centaur warriors. Her mother is actually well respected by the centaur community for her strength. If she's chosen you as her master, there isn't really much you can do to get her to stop calling you that. Just enjoy it. He really didn't like the chuckle the woman on the other end of the line was giving him, and her last words before hanging up didn't help. We'll just call this payback for that visit you paid me at work the other night. You fufu. Naruto sighed and shook his head as he put his phone back in his pocket. Before looking to the door to his living room, he'd have to get more renovations done because damn if Centauria wasn't really tall. Oh, maybe he could take to floating in the house now. Well, the paperwork's being taken care of, so no need to worry about that. Though, I don't suppose there's any way I could get you to stop calling me the M word, is there? None at all, master. I have chosen you as my sworn master, and it is my duty to serve you, to protect you, so I shan't cease calling you master. Though, if you wouldst thou please call me Syria? It is what those close to me call me. Tilting his head, Naruto shrugged and floated up a bit, legs crossed as his wings held him aloft. Well, that's fine, I can call you Syria if you want. Oh, what the heck, it's not like I haven't given in to a lady's demands before anyway. Now, how about you meet my other house guests? Eh? Other house guests? Thou art an adulterer? Darling! You brought another woman home, didn't you? Arg, so unfair. Husband! Poppy's hungry! Face met palm and Naruto couldn't help but chuckle as Maya and Centauria began arguing, though he supposed it would be a bit bad if he didn't fix the situation soon. Listen now that I am here, things shall be very different. First, our master shall be held with utmost care, esteem, thou shalt do this for him above all. Eh? But I'm always thinking about darling. I don't think you use the right parts when thinking about me, Maya-chan. Poppy is too. Please don't tell them that you went first. I like sleeping, thank you. Anyway, you girls finish up okay? I have something to show Poppy and Syria. Maya, you're coming too even though you've already seen it. Just don't mess with them and you won't have to spend the entire time there in bed. Like last time. Unless you liked it, in which case I'll think of something you won't enjoy. The glower the blonde sent the lamia got her to look sheepishly away. It wasn't as if she'd done anything wrong, she was simply protecting her darling from the clutches of those strange mechanical women. After dinner, the small group was led to a particularly large room inhabited by several desks, each holding a large glass orb, though each orb had a different kind of environment. One orb held a vast forest, another looked like it was perpetually caught in a blizzard, with not much visibility into it. Yet another orb looked like a farm of some sort, while another looked as if a desert in the middle of a sandstorm was contained within. Another orb looked filled with water, with a tiny bubble of air in the middle, containing some sort of platform. Next to that stood a glass orb containing merely a single raised platform and nothing else. Finally, in the center of all the other orbs, was a slightly larger one containing a beautiful white sandy beach, and a large tower in the center of cylindrical design, with a winding staircase and a large bridge connecting to one side, the side pointing towards them. Well, this is my resort. Maya's already been inside, Ms. Smith and my new coworkers have too. Now it's Poppy and Syria's turn to take a look inside. Don't worry, you two, you'll like it, I'm sure. Though maybe I should put some handrails. Poppy will be fine, and Maya should be able to wrap around the bridge, but Syria, you have to be really careful once we're in there, okay? Master, I don't mean to protest, or accuse you of anything, but dost thou really believe we shall fit within that thing? It has not even an opening, we would never fit. Naruto snickered softly and placed a hand on Maya's head, the lamia girl grinning cheekily as she leaned into the touch. It was a little childish, but it just showed that her darling cared for her, right? You may think that, and you may think I'm a bit crazy for what I'm about to tell you, but these orbs, my resort and training grounds, they all run on magic. My birthplace, believe it or not, while less advanced than this place, is more along with extra species peoples than this place is. Heck, I think we may have some never seen before in this place, though, give it a while, some might show up, I wouldn't know. Anyway, in my home, I befriended a group of fair folk, fairies, and they in turn made me these. Maya already knew this, but the other two didn't. Poppy was ecstatic about the thought of magic, and though Syria didn't particularly believe in magic, she had heard stories of the fair folk herself. The knightly blood running through her recognized them, and she had also heard plenty of tales concerning them. Master has had dealings with the fair folk? Truly? Could such beings truly be trusted, however? Then, I must see this place for myself. Master, I entreat thee, allow me entrance into this place so that I may validate its truth. Chuckling softly, Naruto only nodded and gave Maya a little push forward. You go first, Maya, you've already been inside, so it shouldn't be anything really new. Wait for us once you're in though, got it? The Lamia girl saluted and moved in front of the main orb, before with a flash of light, she was gone. She disappeared! Poppy next, Poppy next! Without even waiting, the harpy hopped to where Maya had been before she disappeared. In another flash she too was gone, leaving Naruto shaking his head, and Centaurea simply looking unnerved. Master, is it true that they hath gone into the orb there? I must say, 'tis strange to see them simply disappear once they stand before that strange orb. Naruto shook his head and held a hand out for the centaur, who blushed at the offer but simply moved to bravely stand where Maya and Poppy had before. He chuckled as she disappeared like the other two. Hey, she's really cute at times. Really, blushing so much simply because she would have been holding my hand. Shrugging, he took his own spot before his resort, disappearing into it in one last flash of light. Master! 'Tis truly a marvelous place you have. Thou said it was magic, and right before my eyes it has been proven. Such a place could not exist otherwise, 'tis impossible otherwise, is it not? Ha, glad to see you believe me now, and to think, all it took to prove magic to someone was inviting them into my resort. Now, Maya, Syria, you two are from here on under strict orders not to attack my maids, got it? The glower he sent at the Lamia made her look away, having the gall to look sheepish even though he knew she'd attack them like the first time she was here if she saw them tending to him. Centaurea. She'd called him an adulterer when she'd met Maya and Poppy, and she carried around a sword, even though it was fake. Yeah, he had no doubt about her ability with it, because she certainly had the musculature to wield it, and it was also fairly sharp, though thankfully not combat-ready sharp. Thank the log for small miracles. Maids, you say? Master, how is it possible to keep people in this place? Does that not seem a little cruel? Nah, it's fine, they prefer it in here because they can't really move around outside. The air in here is thick with the magic they need to move by themselves. If they go out, they can't do that, and basically they shut down, as it were. I see, then they are like robots? I did not know the world was so advanced in their making. Well, I guess you could call them that, but really they're far more advanced. I'm actually surprised that they were able to be made in my homeland. Those fairies are surprisingly advanced people, you know? Anyway, please don't call them robots. Call them Jinins if you must. They are female androids, and are fairly organic, all things considered. Yes, I shall do thy best to not cast insult upon your workers. Laughing softly, Naruto eventually just waved the centaur off, beginning the small trek across the bridge towards the actual building of the resort. Poppy, don't fly off just yet, okay? I need to introduce you to the maids first, though you won't meet all of them today. Also, for now, I'm locking down the farm port. Suffice to say, he had prior experience with harpies and baby chicks. It was cute, yes, but a bit tiresome. But Poppy wanted to fly in here. It's so big, Poppy never gets to fly in the house. Her pouting face was almost too much, but he stayed strong, because women fell to his looks, not the other way around, damn it. Log, give me strength. Darling! When we were here last you didn't let me enjoy the beach, can we do that this time? Eh? Oh, sure thing, Maya, just ask one of the maids to give you a bathing suit. I have some for Lamia here, just don't ask why. Syria, you'll need to have a bathing suit made for you, but that won't be too hard, and Poppy, we have some that should fit you fairly well too. Come on, let's get you all introduced, and then we'll relax on the beach for a while before I show you to the training grounds where I'll be teaching you. To be taught by the master, truly this is bliss. Or, at least it will be once lessons commence. Just try to remember that I was here first, I've already started my training with Darling. Let me stop you right there, you haven't trained in here yet, Maya. Hey. Oh, just wait, maybe you won't be so eager after the first few hours. 8 hours. Master, surely thou would not confine us to this place for so long. What of the responsibilities of the outside world? Did I forget to mention? Time really has little meaning here. A whole day in here is but an hour outside this place. Usually I'd prank you by not telling you this, and make you think we'd missed an entire day outside. How the look on Miss Smith's face. And Master can be so cruel. Nah, I think it made for a fine comeuppance. She was snooping in my house after all. Wah, husband, Poppy can't take it. Poppy took off after that, leaving Naruto to face palm, though he also couldn't help the small smile that graced his lips. Using his connection with the resort, he informed his maids to not shoot down the overexcited flyer. It was simple, and he could inform them of his guests that way, but he wanted the girls to meet the maids. Mostly so Syria didn't accuse him of adultery again. He didn't bet his maids, because he needed some kind of female presence in his life that he didn't constantly think about fucking. It grounded him when he needed it, and they had standing orders to strike him if they didn't desire any advances he did pull with them. A guy had to have fun, even if he wasn't having sex, right? His maids were all quite the lookers too, so as long as they didn't mind, he got all the looky-loos and touches he wanted. Grounded did not mean he couldn't be a perv, something he entirely blamed on his godfather, Kakashi-sensei, and his genes. He was also just very good at hiding it, or turning it to his advantage. Arriving soon enough at the resort itself, Naruto got Centauria introduced to the maids. She had sputtered at their somewhat skimpy attire, and lovely figures, as well as their deference to him, but she did not complain. It was nice, really, because Maya had downright tried to destroy them in jealousy when she met them. It hadn't worked, by the way. Well, would it be too much trouble to get these two lovely ladies some swimsuits to try out? They wish to enjoy the beach. Also, we have an errant harpy who will be joining them eventually. Could someone go find her and escort her to the ground floor changing room? One of the gathered maids, one with hair a brighter blonde than his own, and deep amethyst eyes agreed, sprouting wings shocking Maya and Centauria and leaping away to find the excitable bird girl. Maya and Centauria were twitching. Why were they twitching, you may ask? Well, because they were watching as their darling/master was treated almost like royalty by his maids. The Gynods they had been called. There were 30 in all, and each had a name, though until they familiarized themselves with the mechanical ladies, they'd been given permission to use their number identifications, obviously 1 to 30. Thy sword arm is twitching to strike. I am not sure who at this point. Darling is just making use of their intended purpose. Who art thou trying to convince, me or thyself? Doesn't it bother you that they're fawning over him like that? Sigh, indeed, though thy arm wishes to strike, my heart is at rest knowing our master is in such great care. Naruto had been relaxing while they had been enjoying the water, though they had stopped not long after due to the relaxing he was partaking in. 3 of his maids were serving him. One brought him a large glass of some strange liquid, another had brought him fresh fruit, and the last was feeding him said fresh fruit. It was maddening that they didn't protest such service, and more so to the 2 extra species girls that he was accepting it. Around this time, Poppy finally arrived with a splash. Literally, the girl, now dressed in a one-piece swimsuit, had dropped from the sky into the water, cannonball style. Ha, nice one, Poppy-chan! All right, ladies, score it! At once the 3 maids tending to him held up their left hands, golden numbers appearing floating above their palms. The first maid, a platinum blonde with dark skin, scored Poppy with a 7, the second, a particularly well-endowed maid with long black hair and pale skin, scored the girl an 8, and the one who was feeding Naruto, a maid with red hair, emerald eyes, and a more motherly body, scored the harpy girl a 6. Yay, Poppy did good! Heh, nice job, Poppy. These girls are a tough crowd. They must like you. We are only a tough crowd because we have already seen your tricks. Try something new if you want a better score, Goshijin-sama. See? Wah, my maids don't like me. All 3 maids rolled their eyes, sporting similar small smiles, quickly going back to what they were doing beforehand, the first two leaving while the last continued to feed the pouting blonde incubus. Darling, come swim with us. Don't just laze about all day. Mama, why do I gotta go swimming? I'd rather you girls just enjoy yourselves, okay? Ufufu. Kushi, don't you dare. This made both Centaur and Lamia suspicious, though the latter also had a bit of a grin on her face. Oh, I think I see what's going on here. Darling can't swim. Naruto acted as if he'd been shot through the heart, clutching his chest in faux pain, the maid Kushi stroking his head comfortingly. Her words absolutely didn't match her soothing actions. Gashijin-sama has always relied on items he owns to do anything underwater, or simply strides across it as he had learned in his youth. Swimming is a skill we fear he will never learn. Placing a hand to her cheek, she poked Naruto's cheek with her other hand, ceasing her soothing head petting. This incredibly cheeky Gashijin-sama has neglected to learn how to swim, even whenever he was offered a teacher. Oh, don't go talking about me like that, you're supposed to be on my side, Databeo. Slapping his hands over his mouth as soon as the last syllable left his lips, Naruto seemingly teleported over by the resort, crouching by the wall and sulking. This cannot stand. Master, I, Centauria Shiana, shall instruct you in the ways of swimming. 'Tis truly a useful skill to know, and I would be remiss in my duties if I did not teach thou how to do so. Great, look what you did, Kushi, I done wanna learn how to swim, damn it. Wah, husband doesn't know how to swim. Poppy can teach. Wait, do you need to know how to swim in order to teach it? Poppy can teach husband to float on his back. Poppy, dost thou not know how to swim either? Well, I guess it cannot be helped. Come, I shall begin the instruction. Maya-san, wouldst thou help me in instructing these two? Ehihei, it would be my pleasure. Ugu. I'll get you guys back for this. Now, Gashijin-sama, don't complain. Swimming is incredibly useful, just as the young miss said. You're already in your swimming trunks, it would be a shame if they went to waste yet again. Centauria and Maya both grabbed one of Naruto's arms before he could protest, dragging him away, though he tried to make it as hard as possible for them. My vengeance will be terrible and unavoidable. Hey. You thought you'd escape. But you've nowhere to run now. Darling? Husband's broken. Quiet, all of you, it's time. 3 nervous extra-species girls reluctantly followed the blonde incubus they stayed with, as he led them into what seemed to be a thankfully well-lit basement in the resort. They soon entered a large room that seemed not to see very much use, making them wonder why they were there. Except Poppy, who had taken more than 3 steps to get to there. Naruto was working on that, actually. Now, for the initial port, you will all have to use this room so that you can port from anywhere in the resort. The farm port is locked down for now, but that still leaves the Great Forest Port, Grand Desert Port, Frozen Tundra Port, Great Sea Port, and the Open Sky Port. I have others, but they aren't set up right now because they aren't really needed. Though maybe I'll have to see about bringing out my hidden village ports to help with urban missions we may end up getting. Looking through each port, he brought his extra species guests to the first, the Great Forest Port, as it was marked. Okay, this is where Syria will be training first. The forest in here is dense and thick. I have some of my maids hiding in here, and they shall be your opponents, as it were. However, Syria-san, your goal is not to defeat them all in a glorious battle. Your goal is so evade them entirely, only battling if you must, breaking away should you face more than one, and find the center of the forest, where a reward will await you should you manage to make it with these stipulations. A reward, you say? Master, thou art too kind. I admit, I had not been expecting this, but please put your faith in me. I shall have this course beaten by day's end. The centaur stepped into the circle indicated as the transport circle, and in a flash she was gone. Well, now that she's taken care of, how about we get started on you, Maya-chan? Hey. Unavoidable. Maya shivered bodily, holding herself as she felt as if the heat in her body was sapped away by that one word. "Es so cold. I'll hibernate." "Bah, you'll be fine. Your training ground is the Grand Desert. I don't know exactly where you hail from, but... Never mind. My point is that you shouldn't go into hibernation in here, so go nuts, okay? My maids are also waiting you in here though, so be careful. None of them have their levels set very high for right now, but they'll get steadily better as you do, keeping it challenging. Your goal for training is to find the ruin holding your reward, and your goal is the opposite of Centauria's. You are to battle any who cross you, but only for 5 minutes each, and you are to flee should you face more than 2 at once. I feel your stealth is fairly good, but your combat skills could use some work. Ah, darling, you won't be disappointed. Trust me, I'll have this down way before Centauria. I'm pretty good at my village's fighting style after all. Without even waiting for anything else to be said, Maya moved into the circle indicated by her own name training ground. She was gone quickly, and Naruto released a dark laugh as he waved goodbye. Husband, where are they exactly? I'll tell you where they're not, Poppy. Sav. Husband. Naruto turned and drew the petite harpy into a hug, making her squawk softly, though she gave in quickly enough, nuzzling him as he held her. Don't worry, Poppy-chan, you didn't conspire against me, so you're pretty safe. However, I do still need to train you. Come, I'll show you the open sky myself. Hi. The open sky port took them to the, open sky, or so it seemed. Aside from the platform, everywhere Poppy looked was nothing but open skies, and the breeze felt so nice too. Wah! Husband, this is wonderful. My people have dreamed of a place like this. The breeze is so fresh, I could fly all day here. Ha, yes you could, but this is training, okay? Special training too, a bit of memory training and a bit of flight training. You get your prize right away, because it is needed for your training. Here you have night blindness, right? These will help you with that problem. Held in the blonde's hand, extended towards the petite harpy girl, was a strange black hat and a dull white scarf. Husband, wouldn't some kind of flashlight be better? Ha, no, Poppy, these are special. Here, let me help you put them on, okay? Taking the hat, he placed the fedora upon the harpy's head, fixing it so it looked dashing upon the petite girl, before doing the same with the scarf, looping it loosely around her neck and fixing it so that it hung over her chest instead of blowing back behind her. These are the honchkro hat and scarf, and if the two are worn together, will grant you immunity to night blindness. In fact, it should reverse the problem completely. Here, let's see. With a bit of concentration, the sky around them turned dark, and Poppy looked around quickly, the items she now wore not being displaced at all by the movement. Ha! Wow, Poppy can really see! Husband, this is an awesome gift! An awesome girl deserves an awesome gift, right? Now, let's see how well they work, and if you can discover what else they do, okay? I'm going to set up some turbulent winds, and I want you to fly as well as you can. I'll also put up obstacles, perhaps rings, or pillars you must fly around. What do you say? Challenging enough? Hawa, husband, that sounds a little scary. Placing a hand on the girl's head, or hat more like, Naruto gave her a gentle smile. Hey now, don't be scared, Poppy, you're a tough bird, right? You'll go really far if you stick to the training, and I'll be able to take you on more missions with my work. We can hang out more after them too, if you want, but you have to complete your training, okay? Leaning in, he tipped the girl's hat up a bit, placing his other hand around her waist and drawing her close. Gently, their lips met, and Poppy gave a soft moan into the kiss, face flushed. She forgot stuff a lot, but the feeling of her husband's chest, or his lips, she couldn't forget at all. Poppy will do her best. There's a good girl, now fly. So, what have we learned? D-Darling is a sadist. Ahem, stealth is a lot harder to learn than I had thought. Wah. Flying in the dark is so fun, but also so scary. All three girls were looking a bit haggard. Maya and Poppy were in tears, and Centauria only held back her own tears through sheer willpower. Wrong, Syria, the point of stealth is to not get your opponent's attention. In fact, you should aim to draw as little attention as possible. Maya-chan, you were in a situation where stealth was practically impossible, forcing you to utilize pure combat skills. You have some nice moves, but you don't have stamina, and if you aren't using your tail you don't exactly have the strength you need, so the point of that was to learn skill. With skill, Even a petite girl like Poppy could take down some pretty big foes. Finally, Poppy, you're a good flyer. But you need to be a stronger flyer, hence the winds that were blowing in the open sky. Once you can fly in stronger winds, and complete the obstacle course, you could very well rule the skies, as long as you remember your hat and scarf at night. The three girls looked properly chastised, vowing to do better, and complete the training Naruto had set out for them. Now, in the meantime, between training that is, I want you all to be working out at least a bit. We can't exactly do that here, 'cause I don't have a gym in any of my orbs, but when I find a place you can bet we'll be going regularly. In the meantime, I have some weights and stuff that you all can use, and don't worry Poppy, I have some that even you can use. The three girls promptly nodded. Centauria didn't really need the weight training, but she felt she could always improve herself. Maya knew that while her tail was quite strong, she herself wasn't, and Poppy was just excited to try something new. Now you three get some sleep. You spent 2 days in the resort, so I'd like you to get some rest and try to get back into the outside world's time. So I have a question for ya, Zombie-chan. Eh? Shoot, if it's a question about zombies then I'm your girl. Well, how often do your body parts fall off? I mean, you lost your hand so easily at the last bar. Hey, that was just some kind of freak occurrence. Still, thanks for sewing it back on for me. Hi-ya-hi-ya. Hey, it's really not a problem. Hey, in a way, let me hold your hand. Eh? What, you try and say something, Blondie? Oh, nothing at all, at least not by saying I got to hold your hand. If I was trying to say something I'd just say it. Then why don't you? What, you scared of getting bit? Come on, I know I'm not supposed to bite. Heh, scared? Bah! I welcome the challenge. We'll just have to find you something else to bite. Both Naruto and Zambina were drinking at a bar. The zombie girl had invited him for a round of drinks, and it had turned into bar hopping. They were trying to see who could hold the more liquor for the most spoken of reasons. Zambina cause she was, well, dead, and Naruto because he claimed the alcohol would get burned out of his system as fast as he could drink it. In the end, though he didn't often slur his words, Naruto was losing. Turned out being dead had its advantages in the game of drink, and Naruto was learning that no amount demonic chakra would keep him sober forever. Eventually Kurama even got drunk, and he had to rely on his own alcohol tolerance. His cheeks were flushed already, actually. So, you're an Incubus, right? Yup. Do something Incubus, why? Like what? I don't exactly think you know any of the many skills being what I am brings me. Ha, you'd think, but I've been reading that book that came out a while ago. If it's anything like that, why don't you look in my eyes? You read the Incubus series? Sha, hell yeah, it's a riot. Heh, well then. Zambina gave the blonde a curious look as he took off his glasses, raising an eyebrow as his eyes seemed to glow once they were off. Honestly, it was kind of hot. Then he looked into her eyes. Naruto grinned and got up from his seat, moving to sit next to the now flustered zombie, her cheeks almost matching her hair in color. Hey, I thought something like this might happen. Seems being dead won't save you from me. Licking his lips, Naruto leaned in slowly, Zambina not fighting it at all, the closer he got. Before she could stop him, their lips met, and her vision went white for a moment. It had been a long time since she'd felt something like this. Her hands came up to his shoulders, and he pushed closer to her, one hand coming up to cup her cheek. She leaned into the touch absently, more affected by the blonde's kiss than by the alcohol they'd been drinking. Hey, take it outside you too. Breaking the kiss slowly, Naruto turned his gaze to the man who'd interrupted them. Inebriated Naruto was not nice Naruto. Move. That one word was full of more malice than the interrupter had experienced before, and it showed as he quickly made himself scarce. However, either Incubus nor Zombie paid it any mind, the former simply scooping up the latter and brazenly disappearing in a whirl of smoke. And leaves, don't ask where they came from though. Before Zambina could blink, they were already a few blocks away from the bar they'd been in, though she had no idea how it was possible. Maybe she could get drunk, and it chose that moment to kick in. Soon enough she was unable to think about it much more, because her lips were taken again, and her eyes were caught by those glowing blue orbs with the unique pupils. Her body felt hot, she could feel her fipples poking out against her tank top, and there was moistness building between her legs. How the hell was this possible? Lemon skipped. Naruto laughed softly as he carried Zambina to her apartment, which she shared with the rest of her team members, minus him. She was wearing a spare pair of his shorts, the sporty ones which were now hugging her butt, like they did his when he wore them. He was a man, but the shorts were the only article of girl clothes he liked, and wore often. He was not a cross-dresser, he just really appreciated the style and comfort of those shorts. Damn it! Handing the zombie off to Tainisha once he arrived at their apartment, Naruto saluted and promptly left, his night complete, and at least some of his supernatural lust sated. Things were looking up. He'd had to bottle most of his lust up after arriving in this world, but it looked like he could gradually begin letting it out now. Make bonds that breach the barrier of worlds. Heterochromatic eyes blinked as their owner came to. Ebony black hair seemed to drink the light as a girl sat up from where she lies. Blinking again, the girl groaned as she looked around, taking a sniff of the air, before she sneezed, face scrunching up in distaste. This place smelled horrible. But he's definitely here. Otatan. Grinning a familiar vulpine grin, the little girl hopped up and dusted herself off. She was wearing a black short skirt, over the back of which a long black tail swished about, topped with a heart/kunai shape. Over her torso the girl wore fishnets, a black tank top, and over those she had a dark red trench coat, just like her auntie Anko. Over her coat she had 3 pairs of pitch black wings, just like her father's, and atop her head she had his same style of horns, except shorter. Blinking as she floated up, doing her best to ignore the smell of the air in this place, one sapphire blue eye and one wine red eye glowed softly as she peered over the strange village she had appeared in. It was all metal and glass, and there were hardly any trees. Well, except for that very nice forest she could see in the distance. But none of that mattered. All that mattered was the scent of her prey, her daddy, her idol. "Look out, you weird village! Uzumaki Kureha is here, and I'm not stopping till I find my daddy, Databane! Damn it, Bachan!" Shaking her head, the girl put on a determined face. Kureha sped off without a thought, tail trailing behind her as she flew towards where the scent of her daddy was strongest. She had appeared quite far away, but she would find him, and then she would punish him for just disappearing like he did. He'd made Mama cry, and Auntie Anko was very angry at him too. Didn't he know that old bag upped her training when she got angry? Stupid daddy. As she was passing by a building, a voice called out to her suddenly. "Hey! Where's your host family?" Stopping quickly and whirling around towards the owner of the voice, her eyes widened as her nostrils flared. This lady smelled like her daddy. "Yuwa! You know Otatan? Where is he?" Hold on, Otatan? I'm sure I have no idea what you're talking about. My name is Ms. Smith, now if you could please show me some ID and tell me." "Oh, those aren't harpy wings. Your Otatan, who did you say he was?" "I didn't. My Otatan is Uzumaki Naruto. I'm his daughter, Uzumaki Kureha, born of the devilishly handsome Uzumaki Naruto and the gloriously beautiful Uzumaki Yuhi Kurinai." The woman, Miss Smith, palmed her face after the girl had finished speaking, grumbling a bit and giving the girl a once-over. "Oh, I know him all right. But he's probably sleeping right now. It'll be a pain, but maybe I can turn this in my favor." Looking at the girl, Kureha, Smith gained a sudden glint in her eyes, smirking behind her hand. However, it was a glint that Kureha knew all too well, after living with her daddy. "Say, Kureha-san, was it? You're his daughter, maybe you'd like to play a little practical joke on your dear Otatan, Oh, you mean you want to prank him, right? I'm in. Good. Now all you need to do is... Chapter end. Watch all the uncensored lemons/parts of this story on my Patreon. Link is in the description.
Now watch daily exclusive and censored lemon stories and mature content, along with NSFW images, featuring harem girls characters from the fics. Access all this and more on my Patreon. Click the link in the description to explore.